Boys and girls, welcome back. Big Carnage House Productions episode. I've got the YouTube and Facebook rock star, Beltran, in the house. Thank you for coming.
I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
We've driven about an hour to come on the show, and so we really appreciate that while you're in Sydney.
I'm a committed young lady.
You're a committed young lady, committed to the cause. Now, it's actually quite hard to do an introduction about you because a lot of the media, which talks about you, I assume gets it wrong.
Yeah.
So why don't you give yourself a little bit of an introduction, kind of what you believe, because The Guardian is saying a whole lot of things which we'll talk about, but I don't think are true.
Well, The Guardian thinks I'm like a far-right incursion and that, the Liberal Party I single-handedly took down the Liberal Party. But how I would introduce myself is simply a conservative, someone living in Australia, seeing what's happening in Australia and wanting to stop the progression of the sexualization of kids and all of these different things, and getting rid of my main goal is a Christian goal, but I think at the heart of it it's Australian. What I want to I'm a Christian, I'm definitely a conservative, I'm a writer, I write articles sometimes, and I make YouTube videos, but I also do what you do in that I interview people as well. Every single Wednesday night I have a Wednesday night live show where I interview different people.
Wednesday night ritual. Put it down in your
yes.
in your diaries as a recurring one.
And at some point, Dougal has been scheduled on, so it's happening.
We'll pencil that in.
Absolutely. So that's sort of my intro about myself. So Christian, conservative, writer, YouTuber. Yeah.
So on the Christian conservative side, you talked about the sexualization of kids. What are kind of the big issues in your mind that kind of need a Christian or a conservative influence that would make like Australia a better place, do you think?
Well, I think we need to stop permitting schools to teach anything regarding sex, particularly moral type things. So if you want your child to know the intricacies of anal sex or of that nature, that is not up to a school to teach. That's not up to the Safe Schools program. That's up to a parent and a child. The parents should be teaching morality. School is for history, English, maths, keep it to the basics. And even as a Christian, I can say, okay, if you want to keep Christianity out of schools, fine. That's all good. But also, by the same token, we can't have a double standard. So that means that transgenderism, atheistic type things, and homosexuality, all of those things should also, by the same token, that ideology should also not be taught in schools. That's up to a parent to teach their kid in due time. Like, I found out about that stuff quite late in life. I think I turned out okay. It's...
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think that, in terms of getting sex education kind of out of school, would you include kind of like knowledge about contraceptives and things like that?
No, I think you need to know the basics. So if sex ed has to exist, which probably it does, but it needs to not be in primary school, I think. And if you're going to teach it, I believe it should be, the basics: man, woman, baby, how long a woman is pregnant, what genital herpes and all that kind of stuff is, all those sorts of things, and that abstinence is an option, and so is contraceptive. And I don't think abortion should be encouraged either. I'm vehemently anti-abortion.
Okay, well, we might be able to talk about that. What do you think about the so when you say about homosexuality, what does that mean to you? What do you have a certain view of homosexuality in general, or is it just about what it should be taught in schools? Or
I just don't think it should be advocated. That's all. I don't think we should be treated. I don't think anyone should be bullying anyone. I don't think Christians should be bullied in school. I don't think people who are fat should be bullied in school. I don't think gay individuals should be bullied either. That doesn't serve any purpose. And in fact, people seem to forget the fact that I often in my videos defend people who are gay, particularly those in the Middle East who are thrown off roofs simply because they happen to have a same-sex attraction. I don't want gay people being killed or murdered, but by the same token, I'm not going to sit and say that to be gay is perfectly fine, because unfortunately, I would love to say that, but that's not what the Bible says. And I know that sounds dumb. She's going off a book. But I mean, if I'm a Christian and I believe in God, why would I cherry pick that bit out? So even though I don't want gay people treated horribly and I want them treated equal under the law, homosexuality as an act, the act, not the concept, is technically a sin. And I have people who are gay that know this, that I have this view, and it doesn't affect the friendship because on an individual level, I treat everyone right. And that's what people can't separate.
Right. And so do you think, well, a question I would have is, as a Christian, you said, so the same-sex attraction is not necessarily an issue.
No.
Why do you...
this is a little, I probably think I shouldn't say this. I've felt that before. I've had a same-sex attraction before. I just haven't acted on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exclusive.
Exclusive. Well, you heard it here first.
I shouldn't have said that.
That's going to be the next article.
Yeah, I think so. She's a hypocrite, says The Guardian.
Yeah. So do you think, so why would you... This might be a dumb question.
Go ahead.
But I'm going to say it anyway because that's what we like to do on the show. Is as a quite strong Christian, why would someone be, let's say, given a strong same-sex attraction by God if it was they're not supposed to act on it?
Because God doesn't give you that. We all have battles in our lives. For some people it's alcoholism, for some people it's pornography, for some people it's all these different things. Like when Israel Folau put up that post, in it he also said drunkards, atheists, thieves. I've been drunk before, so he got me on that one. I've been
Me too.
yeah. I've been
I've probably got at least 3 on the list.
What, are you an atheist? Or atheistic
hard
thoughts?
to say, but if I died in a motorcycle accident today, I probably would not go to heaven.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, but long story short is
Comment below whether you'd go to heaven or hell if you died in a motorcycle accident today.
Yeah. Well, he got me on a bunch of them and I wasn't offended. You clearly weren't offended. Many people weren't offended on the drunkard, on the atheism, on the stealing. But somehow, the tokenism that exists in the homosexual community is like, oh, well, we're offended. You can't touch that subject anymore. It's just offensive on all counts. And if we're going to treat every single person equally, then the subject has to be spoken about without so much outrage. I wasn't offended by the drunkard comment or by the atheistic comment. I had atheistic thoughts in the past. I've stolen before. Like, these are sins we all commit at some point. Being gay is no worse or no better than stealing or than murdering or than, it's all under the eyes of God a sin. So it really is irrelevant. But for some reason, that subject gets heightened by the media and the left. And so that's sort of the stuff that I'm trying to work towards. Like, I want people to see that, we all sin. Gay people, we love you. That, I'm no better than you. We're all equal under the eyes of God. So, yeah. So I think that's an easy concept to grasp. I think. You don't seem any affected by what I'm saying. So you're...
Well, I'm thinking about... I want to ask you a couple more. So, let's say I kind of feel quite naturally, let's say, a natural attraction to women.
Sure.
Right? And my understanding is that gay people feel the natural attraction to same-sex people, right? In the same way I feel naturally attracted to women.
Yes, I understand that.
And so then I think it's kind of harder to say that it's a lifestyle choice or anything except kind of what's been given to them naturally.
It's something that they gravitate towards. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess it's I find it hard to reconcile that with I
understand.
With a Christianity in the sense that if I feel like I was created by God with this thing, it's why would that happen?
Well, the thing is, I understand that point, and I had that thinking some time ago as well. Why would God make an individual this particular way and then punish them for being that way? I completely get it. That's the point of critical thinking. You need to think about these things. But I think what that does is it conflates a little bit because, as I said before, you were lucky, I suppose, in that you happened to be born with the attraction to women, and then that's it. So that's just how it happened for you. But that doesn't mean you don't suffer with other sins. Do you know what I mean? For a gay person, that happens to be the thing that they're suffering with. And I say suffering because I don't think it's something that they want to deal with. I get that. But the point is that you look to something greater than yourself, higher than yourself, and you use that to go, okay, well, the Bible says it's wrong. I feel like it's natural for me. But then one could argue that it's natural for a pedophile to want to hurt little boys. It's natural for a priest to, why are those natural feelings? Well, it's just natural. It doesn't matter. So that argument doesn't work on that level. So the only way, and this is where it'll get a bit funny for me to explain because no one really understands. Australia's very secular, so for me to say this will just sound like, oh, she just sounds like a weird Christian. But only through like the sacrifice that Christ made on the cross for our sins can we redeem ourselves and not commit those sins. You have to turn your back on those things. So if you understand what is a sin, drinking, stealing, all of that, then you have to turn your back on it. And it's hard to do. I still sin every day. But it's a work in progress. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. But that's my response. I don't know if it's
okay,
I don't know if
cool.
it satisfies you,
Well,
but that's my response.
Well, I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that's fair, very fair.
And I think it's kind of interesting for a lot of people. Like I would find myself more in like the kind of libertarian camp where it's kind of like I'm kind of pretty okay with everyone doing what they want as long as they're not hurting anybody.
I agree with that. I don't want to impose like anything onto a gay person. I just simply am offering a biblical perspective. They don't have to watch my channel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm still very libertarian in that regard. Sorry, keep going.
Okay, very cool. Now let's talk a little bit about what The Guardian got wrong. Okay, because The Guardian wrote an article in June 5th, according to my crack research team, which has said that the title was Victorian Liberals Fear Far-Right Incursions as YouTuber Attends Party Event. Now that's it's quite an introduction.
Yeah.
And they must think you're pretty powerful.
Yeah, I single-handedly took down the Liberal Party.
You did.
I hold the power.
You're gonna take them down.
Yeah.
Okay, so what?
Apparently, I already did.
Here's a question that I'm actually that I am kind of interested in. Is do you have an idea of what? I don't think anyone knows what far right means. Like, do you know what far right means?
I know where I am. Oh, I don't know specifically where I am, but I know that there are people who are far more extreme than I am. So I would classify far right personally. I would say it's the people who think Hitler is great and that he did nothing wrong, and to believe like in white preservation and that. Yeah, those, I would say maybe that is far right, but again, I'm speculating, but I feel like that's far right, and I don't hold those particular views. I understand some of their arguments. That does not make me far right just because I can see where they're coming from. But yeah, I think that's far right, and that's not where I am.
Do you think, how much of that do you think there is in Australia?
I think it's a really small group.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And do they have a little home on the internet, you would say, in some nooks and crannies?
I think they're all on Gab.
Oh, they're all on Gab. We might have just alerted the authorities.
They've all been kicked off Facebook, let's say that.
I mean, the acting state director of the Victorian Liberal Party, Simon Frost, issued a one-line statement saying there is no room for extremist views of any kind in the Liberal Party. Extremist is another hard one to define. People like throwing out terms like this. What was the party actually like, and what was your role?
I didn't have a role. So a friend of mine, she's been in a few of my YouTube videos before. Her name is Margaret. She said, there's a fundraiser happening. I've been alerted by a senior Liberal member to come and, do you want to be my +1? I'm like, sure, okay, why not? I said, well, what is it? She goes, I don't really know. We had no idea. It was a fundraiser and I had to pay $85 to get in.
Steep.
Yeah, it's pretty steep, yeah. And I was like,
Those
okay, I might as well.
Liberal Party people.
Or fake conservatives, I'll tell you that much. But I'm not a fan of the Liberal Party, Labor Party, Greens. I'm not a fan of either of them. But so I went to this event with my friend and I ran into some people that I already knew. I'm like, oh, hey, I saw you at the Friedman event and I saw you at Friedman and oh, this is nice. We took photos and all that kind of stuff. And then someone in the Liberal Party alerted this particular reporter and said, oh, that far-right extremist girl, Dia, was there. Oh my God. And then the article comes out sometime later and when I first saw it, I wasn't happy. Like people go, oh, I read what the leftist pages, or at least I used to, I don't anymore, what the leftist pages said about me. Oh, she's going to love this. This is exactly what she needs. She just wants this mainstream attention. I was upset. I was crying about it. I did not want this media attention at all. Like, I didn't see it as a positive at all. But eventually, let's say after two-ish weeks, I was like, oh, whatever, it's done now. There's gonna be more. If I'm in this gig, I'm gonna have to suck it up and deal with it. I know it's not true. Everyone who knows anything about The Guardian knows it's left. And anyone who knows me as a person always says I'm a nice person, maybe a little bit naive, which I hate it when people say that about me. But that's the biggest thing to irk me, when people say I'm a little bit naive. But aside from those things, people say I'm a nice person. So I know that I'm not far right. I know I'm not an extremist. And that quote that you read, it doesn't even sound like he was directing it at me. It sounds like he was talking generally, just generally. Oh yeah, there's no, because I have it on good authority from an individual that is friends with him, that he has no issues with me personally. So yeah, another exclusive.
Just dropping bombs.
Just dropping bombs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's your gripes with the Liberal Party in particular?
First, how they treated me.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like they didn't defend me at all. Not that was their role or their job, but I was thrown under the bus by them. And also, it's a party that claims to be conservative, but really isn't. I found out recently that in the 1960s, they were the party that introduced abortion into the country in the first place.
Right.
So that's a huge issue for me as someone who is pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just make out like they're conservative and Christian. And, I understand from the people that I was talking to that it's a numbers game at the moment. There's a lot of left in there. There's a lot of right in there. So they're trying to build up the Christian majority. They're trying to build that up and kick out all the lefties that are left. But I think the answer is voting smaller parties, giving them power. So I think like Ricardo Bossi and Fraser Anning, like anything that's a smaller party, One Nation, anything that's a smaller party, put your votes to that, give them as much of power as possible for the lower house and the upper house so that they can stop bills passing that are retarded, for lack of a better word.
Okay, you're going to get us all in trouble.
Yeah, I am. This is why I'm
Okay, so there's a lot of... I want to talk about abortion. Let's quickly pick up on Fraser Anning. I think Fraser Anning is pretty widely disliked, I'd say, by most people. Kind of left, centre, and kind of centre
even on
right.
the right.
You did do a vlog where you did interview Fraser.
I've officially interviewed him on one of my live streams, like on a Wednesday Night Live, which was my most viewed interview ever, and I have interviewed him now twice, so 3 times.
What's your overall reaction to Fraser?
He's a nice guy. Look, I've interviewed Sophie York and Ricardo Bossi, who are previous members of the Australian Conservatives. Australian Conservatives, sorry, thank you. And I asked them what their thoughts were on Fraser Anning, and in particular, Ricardo said he's not far right. Like he doesn't buy into the poison of the media, and I didn't either. So I wasn't particularly pleased with what Fraser Anning said after the Christchurch massacre. I read it and I didn't believe the hype either. I didn't follow the hype. I'm like, nah, everyone's angry and infuriated by him. Well, let me read what he wrote. I did a video on it and I thought he politicized the issue a little too much. He made it about, well, this is what happens when this and that. He should have just left it and been like, poor people who were murdered, and then just left it at that. He didn't do that. He politicized it. But outside of that particular issue, I do believe, maybe a little naively, that Fraser isn't far right. He's just perceived that way because the media has stated that about him.
Well, he would mainstream Australian politics.
Yes, but the fact that Australian mainstream talks about him when there are people who are far right who are not mentioned in mainstream means he's mainstream enough to still be mentioned.
Right.
And I think that concept is lost on people.
It's an interesting distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I had a bit of a gripe with his post Christchurch thing as well.
Yes, exactly.
I think probably everybody did. We talked about it on our weekly podcast, The Wrap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I haven't looked into Fraser a lot. I watched part of your interviews. I also remember seeing a clip from one of Fraser's press conferences where he had a guy get up who was previously in the military, talked about the Taliban, and he was fighting them, and obviously talked about Taliban, but he came back and said, well, Muslims in Australia, there's no such thing as a good Muslim, there's all bad Muslims. And then Fraser eventually got the mic and just kind of kept going. And I thought that was pretty strange because...
He kept going, meaning he agreed with those statements? Or
well,
what?
he didn't disagree with them,
okay,
if I remember it correctly.
Okay.
And I thought that was wrong, and like both in terms like the truth, like the facts of the matter, but also in terms of like unhelpful.
Yeah.
Because I think there are quite a lot of good. I mean, whatever you think about Islam as an idea, I mean, I have quite a lot of questions and dislikes about Islam as a faith, but a lot of the people I find are actually really good. Now,
I would agree with that.
And I think that like if there's that opinion or sentiment which Fraser at least kind of doesn't disagree with, I think that's very unhelpful. In the same way as if like someone from the Greens came out and said there's no such thing as like a good conservative or no such thing as like a good Christian.
Gotcha.
I think it's like very unhelpful. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I agree with that. I agree that I think that, and this is probably where some of the controversial... I've watched a lot of Ben Shapiro videos, and Ben Shapiro did this really good video before he started up the Daily Wire, where he explained exactly the extremes of the ideology itself, and how what they think on homosexuality, what they think on Jews and Christians, and he just added up the numbers. It's a huge majority that think really vehemently against those things to the point of wanting them dead. That is extreme, and that doesn't mean that they'll physically do the act, but the fact that they think it's okay to kill a gay person, that's just pathetic. That's just bad. And so my thinking is that a good Muslim, and this will confuse, so I'm going to say it slowly, a good Muslim is a terrorist. A good Muslim is those things. But a bad Muslim is one who acts a little bit more secular and goes against those things. And those ones, in how I'm defining it right now, the bad Muslims are the ones that do well in our society because they don't seem to think it's okay that you can have 14 wives and child brides and all that kind of stuff. But the good Muslims believe exactly what the Quran says in that manner, whereas the bad Muslims are the ones that I'm friends with. But I understand that when I'm with them, I'll be like, you're a good Muslim, and that's the language that we use with each other. But in the technical sense of the term, I would say that a good Muslim is actually an extremist because they're following exactly what the Quran says, and that a bad Muslim is those who are more assimilated into society and just live happily and believe in Allah, and it's all good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, yeah. I totally get where you're coming from. Would you
and I'm friends with these people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so would you say that's like, is that based off like your reading of the Quran, or
that's based off my understanding and the research I have done on the Quran? Yes.
Oh,
have I read it back to front? No.
Okay. And what do you think about then, so you would say like Imam Tawhidi and maybe like Reza Aslan, like different people, they're kind of not following the Quran when they are kind of advocating a more moderate Islam? Yeah,
so I would say that they're great people. I like them. I very much love Imam Tawhidi, even Emma Eros. These are great people who happen to be of the Muslim faith. And they would claim that they are following the faith in the right way, whereas everyone else where I said the good Muslim is the one doing all those things that are wrong, they would say that they would switch the language and say that they're actually the bad Muslims and that they're the good Muslims. And I would say that they are great people for sure, but I would just differ on the terms. But I like those people, and I think that they have an understanding of the Quran that maybe I'm yet to understand, and I'm happy to be a sponge and learn and say, okay, well maybe I don't understand that particular way. So I'm not like going to be hardline on the subject, because I know that there's room for me to grow in what I'm learning regarding Islam.
And in a kind of a similar way, would you say that kind of people who don't take seriously each part of the Bible are kind of bad Christians? Like in that idea that they're not like full Christians?
I gotcha. Yeah. Look, it's hard to say that, because as a Christian, you're not really supposed to be so judgmental on another fellow Christian. I've actually interviewed 3 transgendered individuals on my channel. The third was recently, a lovely lady named Dana Pham. You've probably heard of her, I'm not sure. And I copped a little bit from the right for interviewing her, but the point is that she considers herself a Christian. And I said in my live stream, I don't think you are. I said, I know that's a horrible thing for me to say, and I don't mean to say it, and I felt horrible saying it, because you cannot judge someone's personal experience with God. It's like it just doesn't make sense. Another Christian, in Christianity, you don't do that. You're not supposed to say that. But I don't think she is. And I said, I don't think you are saved. I don't think I don't think you're going to heaven. I don't think you're saved. That's a horrible thing to say, and that's why gay people and all these people get so offended, because like, oh, they're saying I'm going to go to hell. Suck it up.
Well, I'll be there.
You're going to hell. I'm just kidding.
It's going to be a party.
It's going to be nice and warm.
It will be.
But so to say to someone else you're not saved, it can be offensive. And I said that to my transgendered friend. And she was very good about it. She goes, well, that's a pity that you think that, but I believe in this and I believe in that. But yes, there are bad Christians. If you're going against the Bible, I think this is how the best way. Okay, you're making me think about something that I haven't really put that much thought into, but now I think I've got it. If you're actively going out of your way to sin, knowing God doesn't like it, then you're not a good Christian. And in saying that, I've done that before. So I've been in that category of being a bad Christian, because I've purposely done things that I knew God wouldn't like, but I did it anyway. So yes, I would say that logic works as well in Christianity.
Okay, interesting. Now let's do a few more subjects. We briefly mentioned abortion. You said it was a pity that I think the Liberal Party introduced abortion in like the 1960s.
I think it was the 60s, yeah.
Okay, so
don't quote me on that.
Your idea, well, look, I'm sure there'll be someone in the comments who can tell us.
Yeah, exactly.
Your idea would be that there would be no legal abortion at kind of any stage of pregnancy?
I think some abortion is required, like an ectopic, where it's not in the tummy and it's going to clog up the woman and she's going to die. That's a waste of 2 lives, so you might as well fix the issue. I don't think abortion should exist. I think it should be rare, really rare. And I think it should only like people say, well, what about in the matters of rape? Well, as rough as it sounds, and if I would keep it. Because that baby has no fault. That baby isn't its father. Like, I would raise that kid and that baby would serve to be a light in my life. Like, why punish the baby? Or give it away. Like, give it away to a family member that can't have kids, or like give it to someone. But then, and that's where the argument then gets raised. Oh, so, it's going to end up in a foster home. It's probably going to end up being abused and its quality of life isn't going to be very good. You're supposing. How do you know that particular foster home is going to be bad? How do you know his quality of life or her quality of life will be bad based on your assumptions? So you think murder is better. It's just, it makes no sense to me.
So you think it becomes a baby from conception, from the moment the sperm touches the egg?
I think so, yeah. It doesn't mean, so like people then go, oh, well then what about all those babies in test tubes? Like what if a place burnt down? I'm like, well, that's technically, it's not growing. It's not if it's in the belly, it's growing at 3 weeks or 4 weeks and 1 day. 3 weeks, 1 day, or 4 weeks, 1 day. It already has a heartbeat. So,
yeah, so do you think before, let's say 4 weeks before the heartbeat, would you be okay with that or not?
I wouldn't be okay with that, but yes, I would allow that. Not that I'm, I know that sounds retarded, I would allow it. But I would allow that far more than, what New South Wales is doing at the moment with the 9 months. That's I know atheists and pro-choicers who are even anti that. Because that is too far. Would you agree with that? 9 months? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, way too far.
Yeah, way too far, right?
Way too
yeah.
far.
So I think anything before... Look, if I was I would love to be an absolutist on this, but I just don't think that is feasible. I would love to be like no abortions at all, but I don't think that's practical. But I would say anything, if a baby can survive in an incubator, then the abortion shouldn't happen.
I think the viability is like 22 weeks. Anything, that's pretty far.
That's far.
Past 4, like, so But most people, I think most people would say that like when the baby's viable, like outside the
But
woman.
viable is an arbitrary
You
term.
mean like can survive outside?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's, Andy, can you fix that up? With these DSLR cameras, they're really hurting our production. So they're, all right, we're back on. Thanks for being with us. So like that's, I think, 22 weeks. And that,
I think so, yeah.
Was the law in New South Wales, and I think most people in the public would be like, right, if it can survive outside, then then we shouldn't be allowed to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, most people would also say like, well, at conception is way too early. Like most people don't even know they're pregnant for like probably a month or so after.
Yeah.
There should be like time for abortion like during that period as well. So is there I guess my question is there a kind of cutoff for you, or is it kind of like a general opposition to kind of mid to late term abortions?
Oh, I'm opposed to abortion in general. And I'm pretty hard line on that subject matter. That's maybe where I'm far right. But as I said, I understand the practical need for it in certain circumstances, and so I would say that if it has to exist, maybe the first month.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't like it, but I can say that.
I think that leads to a more general chat. You were mentioning in the elevator you've got you're doing some work on a video about promiscuity and such. Let's not talk about the actual video because that's going to be on Dia's channel.
Eventually I'll release it.
But let's talk, and I can have a wild guess at what your answer might be as a pretty strong Christian. Do you have... why don't you just talk about what you think about promiscuity, why you think it's probably bad, if I'm guessing correct, and we can have a little discussion.
Well, promiscuity encourages, I think, different fetishes and different things like that, and then it I think creates more problems. Even if you were to take the biblical God aspect out of it, it isn't healthy. In my I don't know if I wrote an article on it or if I did a different video on it, but I talk about it where I say it shows that women who have had less sex actually have longer lasting marriages. Men prefer women who are, who haven't been on every single horse. Don't give the milk away for free. Right. It's statistically proven. It has been. And people don't like that. People don't like to acknowledge that. So I think lots and lots of sex, one, it's like you're giving a piece of your soul away every time. Two, you're taking the sacredness or the unionship out of the love out of what sex is. It's just becoming a physical enjoyment. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's just not healthy. And then if you keep having abortions as well, it creates abortions, it creates sexual transmitted diseases. None of that is healthy. None of that is healthy. And now you hear morons, dickheads like Miley Cyrus saying things like, I'm up for anything as long as it's of legal age and not an animal and it consents. I'm down. I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's nothing good about that statement. Right. You know what I mean? But they're trying to condition us to be pansexual, to try it all. They're even saying the heterosexuality now. Actually, driving up here, I was listening to a YouTube channel, Wretched. It's a Christian channel, so none of you will like it. But Wretched, and the guy was saying, he was reading out how some writer was saying that if you're a heterosexual, you're going against, you're technically you're not a heterosexual. Actually, heterosexuality hurts society. So it used to be, we're born this way, we're gay, we can't help it. And now they're trying to convince straight people that they should be straight. So they're now imposing that ideology on us. It's like, well, just you do you and I'll do me. Why is... It's just getting further and further. So promiscuity ties up in all of that, and it's just not healthy. Psychologically, physically, all of it.
Well, what do you think about the alternative, right? Because let's say most people are getting married, I think in Australia, over 30 right now. So let's say you hit puberty in mid-teens. What's your... my gut feeling is that if you're a kind of a healthy, functioning male, you've got some, activity that needs to be sorted out. I feel like
DIY.
I feel like the alternatives to having real relationships, to being with a woman or a woman being with a man is probably better than sitting behind a computer screen or I feel like it's pretty a natural, healthy kind of expression.
I
Not to
understand.
mention often associated with enjoyment and fun for some parties involved, hopefully both.
Yeah, look, I understand that, and like sex before marriage or like sex in general is not the worst thing on earth. But what isn't good is having like a lot of partners. Do you know what I mean? I can't expect everyone to abide by the Bible. That's not reality. But I mean, a little bit of self-restraint isn't hard. So when people say, oh, we can't teach abstinence in school, that's ridiculous. Well, why? Are you that weak? Are you that mentally and physically weak that you don't have willpower? Like, it's like when you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I just can't be bothered going to the gym. I'm going to go back to sleep. Is it that difficult to have the willpower to get up and actually do what you claim to do? We are weak beings. And so I think self-control and self-restraint isn't being shown or taught. It's like, have sex with whoever you want, but then at the same time, they're always talking about consent. They're sending out mixed messages. Like, how do you abide by both? It just doesn't work, And so I understand what you're saying. It is healthy, I suppose, but I also think it's good to try and have some self-restraint because you'll be better for it.
Right. Well, that's, I think, the interesting point is like when you say you'd be better for it, it's like, well, people could be practicing self-restraint, but they're like, why? Like, if I'm not hurting anybody, if I'm kind of having fun, like, etc. It's like, well, at least when you go to the gym, like, you see a clear benefit, but like when you choose self-restraint to like not sleep with somebody, it's like, well, where's necessarily the benefit? And particularly in marriage, seems like so far away.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what are we going to do in the interim?
Play the PlayStation, go horse riding. There's lots of different activities that exist out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. No, PlayStation. Actually, Andy is supposed to... we've been trying to start a Carnage House gaming channel for a while.
Of course you
Still
have.
in
Oh my
development.
God, you guys. Yeah, that's fair.
NBA 2K20 is being released next week. We've pre-ordered it.
Nice.
We'll be getting on there. I'm sure Dee is going to be a big fan of the Carnage
I'll
House
share the
gaming.
channel once and I'll be like, hey guys, check this out. I have no interest in it, but check it out.
You'll see some good slam dunks.
Yeah.
Okay. So what motivated you initially to speak up? How long have you had this YouTube channel for?
I've had the YouTube channel for 5 years, but the political content started 3 years ago. Prior to that, it was a really failed attempt at a comedy.
Well,
So do not look up the old videos.
I did watch one of those videos about, it's kind of
Which
related
one did
again.
you see?
It was older women dating younger men.
That's with my friends.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was bad acting. It was just cringe. I leave them up there because some of them did okay. Some of those videos did okay, but like I don't encourage anyone
one
to
for the
watch.
cougars out there, or for the younger men looking for one. You can go and check that video.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you
so you
can
had
if
it
you
for a
really
while.
want to.
What made the shift into like political content?
Well, I was very young when I started noticing little things. Like, when George Bush was the president, I remember how everyone hated him. I remember like everything in the media, which was predominantly left. And I didn't know that at the time. I just remember thinking, why does everyone hate George Bush? Like, and now looking back on him and now being far more politically aware and much more intelligent than I was back then, I know like he's not the greatest guy. But like at the time, I remember thinking, why does everyone hate him? He's a good Christian man. That's what I thought. I'm like, he's a Christian. Why are they being so mean to him? And David Letterman was a late night talk show host that I watched all the time. Channel 10. Always mocking George Bush. Anyway, and then after the fact, he's no longer in power and Barack Obama is voted in. And then nothing. I'm like, why isn't anyone talking about Barack Obama the way they... And I knew what it was. I'm like, well, he's been protected by this beautiful black shield. I knew what it was, and I just... But no one had said it out loud, so I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I knew what it was. And then that was the era when that time frame I started noticing feminism on the rise again. Like, it was never a subject when I was in primary school, high school. Feminism wasn't something people spoke about. But then very slowly it started becoming a thing again. And YouTube at the time was very much Christianity versus atheism. And very, very quickly I started noticing within that time frame that atheists and Christians were uniting. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, these people who used to talk against each other on these respective channels are now talking against SJWs and now talking against the left. And I'm like, that's a weird thing. And so then I started noticing all this stuff, and then Steven Crowder came up, and Milo Yiannopoulos came up, and these people Lawrence Southern, and I started realizing, okay, there's a crop of these sorts of people popping up for a reason. They're advocating for things that I believe in. Steven Crowder was my first YouTube sub. Like, he was the first person I ever subbed to.
Oh, right.
Because he made a video about Islam that I loved. It was Muhammad versus Jesus. Let's compare the prophets and see who is actually this, and that. Anyway, so slowly, I started being red-pilled and all this stuff. And then I watched an episode of The Rubin Report where Milo Yiannopoulos, who I thought at the time was straight, I'm like, well, that's a handsome guy. And I'm looking at him.
Rooster.
Very. I was like, he's cute. I'll turn him. No. But I was watching him, and then he said something to David Rubin, and he goes, I've been very ashamed of my fellow homosexuals. And I'm like, what's he saying? And apparently the reason he was ashamed of his fellow homosexuals is because of their treatment of Christians. I'd never in my life heard a homosexual person see the Christian perspective. I found that, I was like, oh, he's like a unicorn. He's like a golden egg. These human beings don't exist. Now, of course, you have a few more...
you wanted to date him even more.
I was like, yeah, now he has to turn for me now. I actually met him, and don't meet your heroes here. But anyway, I don't like him the way I used to. As in, like, I don't have the same level of respect for him the way I used to. But he was certainly instrumental in my awakening of all of that stuff. And so, yeah, I just thought I had a particular perspective to offer. You know, like Milo is a gay Christian who sees the Christian perspective, happens to also be Jewish. I sort of have a weird combination of those things too. I happen to be an immigrant daughter. You know, I see the ethno-nationalist perspective somewhat. So that makes me sort of controversial. I'm a brown woman who is, who's more right-wing. Like, that combination of things makes the left hate me the way, the left hates Milo, because, they can't categorize me. So I thought I had an interesting identity politic shell. But more than anything, I was afraid that Christianity was slowly dying, and that Christianity, in my view, is what has built all of the most successful Western societies that we have. And the more we allow all of these other imposing, assaulting ideologies to take hold. So that's how I became aware. So I'm answering your question in a really long, annoying way. But that's sort of why I started my channel. All of that made me realize that I had a voice and that I had something I wanted to say. And now I'm here in New South Wales, hanging with the Carnage House Production boys.
Hanging in the Carnage House.
It
takes a real player to come up in here. What do you think it is about Christianity that you think has built good civilizations or good countries?
Well, they're without sounding like a supremacist, it's the superior faith. It just is. It has created the West. The West is best. UK, New Zealand, Australia, America, Canada, even Germany and Spain and all these other countries that are based on Christian teaching. Now it's all very much destroyed because the liberalism of all these countries has slowly deteriorated a strong foundation of what they used to be. They've lost their national identity because they are allowing all this ideological assaults. All of these imposing foreign thoughts have deteriorated the strong Christian foundation of these countries. But what Christianity is a generous faith. Like we are a generous people. We like to help people. There's no other group of people helping charitably the way Christians help people. It's just a fact. And so I believe that Christianity has built great societies. Australia is a fantastic country, despite its crumbling Christian foundations. It's always been a very good country, and it's just sad that it's all slowly disappearing. It upsets me. It really does. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
Yeah.
I suppose you would probably include like Israel in that kind of Christian, like Judeo-Christian values.
Well, Israel is not a Christian country, but it's certainly the most successful country in the Middle East. It allows Muslims, it allows Christians, it allows gays and all of that to live there democratically and free. So yeah, I would include that. I wouldn't say that it's Christian though, because it's obviously the only Jewish country that exists. But
I would also, up until I think the 19th century, at least before the Opium War, I think China was the richest country, the most developed civilization in the world for about 18 or 20 centuries on end. Cool. And I think that all I would say is that I think that this kind of, people talk about Judeo-Christian values, etc. That I think they're, I'd like to see a bit more clearly what they are exactly, because sometimes I have a hard time exactly understanding them. But I would also say it might not be the only formula to make a good country. And
no, of course not. Japan is extremely successful, and they're relatively religionless. And their reigning religion there is called Shinto, which is like the father of Buddhism. And so I'm not saying that it doesn't work in any other way, but I'm simply saying what has been tried already. Atheism in itself, like one could claim that atheism goes hand in hand with communism, and I know that's people are going to say, well, you can't conflate the two. Okay, fine. But the USSR, Russia, got rid of God in schools and all of that, and it was a socialist society for many, many, many years. It doesn't work. They're now back to being, well, that's still debatable, but they're now back to being able to have a faith. A communist China, again, Chinese people are not, they're not free to have faith in Christ. North Korea, not free to have faith in Christ. Islam, you're not free to have faith in Christ. Like there's a trend here, and any society that stops you from having faith in something else, there's a problem there.
Would you say in Australia that people should be free to practice Islam?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, of course.
Now, who outside of the YouTube people you've talked about, who do you kind of look up to? Who do you like? Who do you listen to?
Outside of YouTube?
Or at least outside of like a Crowder, Lauren Southern. Who is it that you kind of look up to?
I don't know. Because everyone I listen to is on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, who else? What are the other YouTube personalities that you like?
Well, I love Dougal Cameron.
Great point.
He's pretty awesome.
Thanks, dear.
No worries.
Love dear Beltran too.
Of course you do. Look, a lot of the people who I'm friendly with outside of what you see on camera are people like all different types of people. Like there are Liberal Democrats that I'm friendly with, like Tammy Candy. She's have you heard of her?
I don't want to be disrespectful, but
no, that's okay. So she's this big boobed, blonde-haired girl, very libertarian. Used to be a staffer for the Liberal Party. She's a friend of mine, and she's very much...
Sounds like you're talking... Andy, you want to come over, listen?
Yeah, well, you should get her on. She has a lot to say. She's pro-life, but a libertarian pro-lifer, and so that's an interesting dichotomy right there. So there's one, Liberal Democrat. Another one is Dean McRae. He has a podcast. He's like the vice president kind of, or executive of the New South Wales branch of the Liberal Democrats. Ricardo Bossi and Sophie York.
Big Rick.
He's fantastic. I have the utmost respect for him, a lot of love for him, and he's been really kind to me. Imam Tawhidi. I'm friendly with him as well. Emma Eros, another Muslim. Everyone thinks I hate Muslims, but I surround myself with them. Yeah, there's a lot of different people that I'm friendly with and I'm proud to call friends and stuff like that. And they're all different. Like Tim Wilms from the Unshackled, I have a friendship with him. It's all different people. Like I don't just turn. And I mentioned earlier my friend Margaret. She's not a YouTuber at all, but she's like someone mentoring me as well. There's just a lot of people. Yeah, and I like that. I like that I'm being helped by so many people and that I can offer them help when I can as well. Just makes me feel good.
That's good. That's some wholesome vibes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I believe like they're helping me, so I should help them. And I like to hook people up when I can.
For sure. Now, what can people expect if they go over and check out your channel? What have you got waiting for them? What can they look forward to?
Well, I don't know when this will go up, but the other day I was trying to do a YouTube video because I'm figuring out YouTube changed the system, so there's no longer Hangouts. They no longer use Hangouts to go live with, and I was using that. It was the easiest system. You send someone a link, you click on the link, it opens up, boom, you have a video, you have a live stream. Doesn't do that anymore. They got rid of it, so I'm trying to use Streamlabs, and it just doesn't work for me. It's just not professional and like it hasn't worked for me. So I tried to get a guest on my channel recently. His name was Guriel Ali, and he's a former Muslim. Now he's a Christian convert. He's now a believer in Christ. And the video didn't go ahead. I was so upset. I was really angry. I was even like, this is the one you wish you should have wanted to work. Like I was like almost angry at God in a way. And I was like, what the hell? Why am I getting emotional? We'll just reschedule it. So that's happening this Sunday now with that guy who's going to talk about his testimony and why he's no longer a Muslim and like how that affected him. So that's a subject matter on my channel, is a lot of anti-Islam, I guess you could say, despite the anti-Islamization, not anti-Islam necessarily, but anti-Islamization of Australian society and anti-certain things from that ideology. A lot of things I talk about is immigration and how it's actually further damaging Australia. I've made several videos on that subject on my channel, and there's even one I deleted and I put it on my BitChute account because I felt like it might have been too controversial for YouTube. So you can, if you have a VPN, you can look it up on BitChute. Otherwise, you can't access BitChute in Australia anymore. No thanks to IP addresses and stuff. Mm-hmm. Abortion is a huge subject that I talk about on my channel. Feminism, anti-feminism, just a series of different things. I have a lot to look at. Like I do edited content where I just talk straight to the camera, and then I do content on with interviews as well. So lots of different things.
Okay. Beautiful. So if you like there, maybe if you don't like there either, but just want to keep up with what she's saying,
let me know.
Head over to Dia Beltran YouTube channel. It's Dia Beltran on Facebook. Any other places you want people to find you?
BitChute is the backup account. So if anything goes wrong there, and I'm working on a website where all of my future articles that I'll be writing on different subject matters will be there too, but that's not out yet. So yeah, you can catch me on Minds and Telegram as well. I'm on every social media platform because at some point I see myself being deplatformed.
Okay. Well, we'll put all the links to those things. We'll put all the links to those in the description. You know, if you like this type of content, make sure to let us know. Hit subscribe if you want to see more of us. That'd be cool.
I'm subscribed.
What else have we got? If you really like it, you can donate on Patreon.
Yes, donate to them on Patreon.
$1 a month. We've got some more cool stuff coming. And also, you out the back?
Yeah, I'm at the back.
Why don't you come and flex on them in the Carnage House Productions t-shirts, which will probably be dropping soon.
Ooh.
Go stand up to the camera.
Come up here. With that new merch. With that freshness.
They got merch.
He's fresh to death. And you can check us on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. We're going to have a lot more cool stuff coming out, a lot more interviews. It's going to be a big 6 months in the Carnage House. Also, give Andy a little push for the CHP Gaming. I think that'll really be his domain. He'll really be able to command it. But other than that, I think we've wrapped up. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate that.
Oh, happy to be here.
And I'm sure we'll be hanging out at some point in the future. So
absolutely.
It was a pleasure having you on, and we'll see each other again soon.